John Trevelyan of the BBC, of the British Broadcasting Film Censors, was very fair. He introduced the categories U, A and X. And people said to him, what's all this U, A and X then? He said, well look, he said, it's a black and white film, a woman's running away from the bandits, she dives in the water and she drowns. That's a U film. He said, it's in colour, she runs down the hill and dives in the water, and you see some alligators going into the water, and you see her struggling, and that's an A film. The X film is she runs down the hill in colour, and she dives in the water, and you see the piranha fish coming up from the, and they biting her legs, and all the blood's there, and the whole river goes blood red, and that's an X film. And they said, oh, thanks very much.
And goes away, my boys, and goes away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day through our...
The Graduate, of course, where in her daughter's bedroom, a naked Anne Bancroft tries to seduce Dustin Hoffman, even though she is his future mother-in-law.
She does seduce him.
No, she does seduce him, yes.
So too the censor was concerned with The Godfather and the severed horse's head revealed in the bed.
Now, I think you'll recognise this.
Trade device, isn't it? Trade device? Yeah, it's high
Am I in the way here?
No.
Psycho originally had 9 stabs in the shower scene, and Trevelyan had it cut to only 3. No incisions, no nakedness was seen at all. The horror was created by clever editing and Bernard Herrmann's music there. Terrific. Trevelyan said that had it been filmed in colour, the film would have been banned. The blood trickling into the plug hole was black and white, not red.
When they make a new film in Britain and in America, they get 1,000 people of different religions, different feelings, and they go and watch the film. At the end of it, they've got a lot of boxes they've got to tick whether they agree with it or whether they didn't like it and so on. And in America, when they showed that film, the results were quite simple. 1,000 people did it, and the feedback came that 35% objected to the stabbing, 83% objected to the view of a lavatory pan that was before that, when she's getting rid of her debit and credit cards and pulling the chain, because the Americans don't like the thought of lavatories at all.
Yeah, that was the first film, you know, where a lavatory was seen, Psycho, so it was rather shocking, especially to the Americans. In 1939 in Britain, The Birth of a Baby film could only be screened to single-sex audiences. And this created the crazy situation where parents-to-be had to go separately and on separate nights to the cinema to see the film.
And in Manchester, the importance of the film was ruined completely when they advertised outside the film you've always been waiting for, The Birth of a Baby, with Henry Tudor on the organ. And I remember in the 30s that if I wanted to go swimming, then you had to go on a Wednesday if you were a fella, and you could go on a Thursday if you were a woman, and on Friday it was a man, and on Saturday and so on. There was no question.
Separate bathing. Yeah, it's very Victorian. American Customs confiscated a batch of films imported from Europe called Games in Bed. And they turned out to be pastimes for children who are ill. You can't always tell. And you know, America's brewers, they offered $5 million to ban the film The Lost Weekend. Do you remember that with Ray Milland? Because he was playing an alcoholic, and it actually won that year's Oscar.
Yoko Ono, she made a film called Bottoms, and it was of a number of naked people just walking away from the camera, completely naked. Trevelyan banned it because some of the men were bandy.
Not bandy, bandy.
Yes. And it's on YouTube if you want to see it. Here's another popular film.
close-up, please.
A personal dislike of Peter's, The Sound of Music, but you know it's very popular in South Korea. They like the film, but they don't like the music. It's shown regularly, but without the music. God knows how long it lasts, or what they call it, The Sound of...
Nothing.
Yeah, I suppose. And also, we read fairly recently that the recent London production of The Sound of Music, the actress playing Sister Bertha got the sack from the show because she kept going to a nearby pub in the intervals, still dressed in her mum's hat. And similarly, or the other way round in fact, Mozart's Marriage of Figaro was half banned, a bit like in Korea, some music and words. It was half banned, the Marriage of Figaro, in Vienna, because they liked the music, that was played, but the theme of uppity servants got the words or the libretto banned.
Monty Python's film The Life of Brian was banned by 39 local authorities when it was released in 1979. It wasn't shown on British television until 1995, and it was banned in Aberystwyth until 2009. It's now regarded as one of the greatest comedy films of all time.
Rock Around the Clock, in its day, that was banned by many, many towns. But meanwhile on television...
The Magic Roundabout was very popular in Britain, and it came from France. And the chap who made it into a British version was Eric Thompson. That's the actress's father, what was her name? Emma Thompson's dad. Eric Thompson wrote the English version with Brian the snail, Dylan the rabbit, and Zebedee, and he called the dog Dougal. The French were absolutely furious and refused to release it because they thought that he called it Dougal and it sounded too much like De Gaulle.
Yeah, they thought that we were taking the mickey out of De Gaulle, amazing. And the BBC itself was in trouble and was urged to remove Eric Gill's 1932 sculpture of Prospero and Ariel from outside Broadcasting House. I don't know if you can picture it out there in Portland Place, Prospero and Ariel, in part because of Ariel's genitals, but mainly because Eric Gill, the sculptor, his diary reveals that he sexually abused his sister, 2 of his daughters, and the family dog. I know, you don't know whether to laugh or not. It's chilling, isn't it? Then people say that should be removed.
And when Doris' daughter died, Elsie refused...
Doris Waters?
Doris Waters died. Elsie refused any celebration of their work if their brother Jack Warner was mentioned. Apparently, he actually visited them regularly and shared his favours with his sisters, depending on which one he decided to stay with for the weekend.
Really? Yeah. We got that from Michael Kilgareth, you know him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Theatre censorship, after 200 years, was abolished famously in 1968, and this led to on-stage nudity in Hair and O Calcutta.
Okay, everybody, get your clothes off. This is a dress rehearsal.
And there we are, there's on the right O Calcutta. Do you know actually why it's called that? Because C-U-L, cull in French, means bottom, cul-de-sac, bottom of sac, right. Dead end. And from the French expression, oh, quel cas-tu-as. Oh, what a bottom you have. Oh, Calcutta. That's why they called it O Calcutta. And there on the left, look at it, pyjama tops and the fabulous new swimmers in the £10,000 see-through swimming pool.
Alan Stafford wrote a book about Wilson, Keppel and Betty, and it's called Too Naked for the Nazis. Not Betty's nakedness, but the skinniness of the two men, and perhaps the groin to buttock shuffle they used to do. The tune, of course, they danced to was and if they're still on YouTube, well worth a look if you get a chance, and And there they are. That's
there's Betty.
That's one of the Bettys. There were 14 different Bettys apparently in their time, and one of the Bettys we met in Calpe.
That one, we met that one.
We met that one in Calpe in Spain, and we met her and we invited her out for the night, and we had a hell of a night out with her. And as you can see, there she is sitting on my lap. And it was a good drunken night, and we heard all manner of stories from them. One story, for instance, was that they arrived at New York, and they always took their own sand with them. The sand had to come from Edinburgh, because it had the right sound when they were. It made the right noise. And they had these 2 big sacks of sand, and they said, "I said, what have you got in the sack then?" They said, "Sand." And they said, "Where's your passport?" And they looked at their passport. They said, "Where are you going then?" They said, "We're going to perform." And they said, "Where are you going to perform?" They said, "Las Vegas." Las Vegas? You're going to Las Vegas with sand? They said, "Yeah, it's special sand." And they took every sack, emptied it, and put it through a sieve to make sure they weren't actually taking anything in the country they shouldn't have done. But that's what it was for.
And the last Betty died earlier this year, or was it December? I don't know if you read that. The very last Betty. No Bettys left at all now. At the Edinburgh Fringe that we go to most years, the medical student reviews tend to use imaginative and medically appropriate, or inappropriate, you might say, titles to draw an audience. A Womb with a View was one, for example.
Or Back Passage to India.
A personal favourite of mine, The Enema Within.
Or The Sound of Music.
Yes,
The Sound of... I'll say it again. The Sound of Mucus.
On Her Majesty's Secret Cervix.
Mary Whitehouse was a self-appointed guardian of public morals who campaigned vigorously against what she considered to be unsuitable material in various forms of entertainment.
Now, you know all this anyway, but we normally talk to not the cognoscenti. And her Edwardian counterpart, as you may know, was a formidable lady called Mrs. Ormiston Chant, who had many run-ins with Marie Lloyd because she did gain a reputation, didn't she, for being rather saucy, cheeky, vulgar. She wasn't vulgar by today's standards, but it wasn't what she said really, it was how she said it, what she could do with a pause, or a sidelong look, or a wink, or a bit of a smile. You can imagine what she did with a song like A Little What You Fancy Does You Good. Or one of her lesser known ones, She'd Never Had Her Ticket Punched Before. A song about the development of the railways, of course. And we've not been able to verify it, but it's that old story of the offensive vegetables. She sits among the cabbages and peas. And apparently she was told to change that, and she did change it to she sits among the lettuces and leeks.
And during the Second World War, Churchill suggested to Parliament that Vera Lynn songs should be banned because they were too slushy and might lower the morale of the troops. And of course,
meet again.
Here's one on.
Don't know where, don't know when.
And German
Lily Marley,
version.
wie einst Lily Marley.
Goebbels had already banned it from the German army, but the British actually, they liked Lily Marlene, the song, and the British troops played to it because of the Western Desert. They played it and enjoyed listening to Lily Marlene, but they put their own words to it, which were quite different.
Going down the canal, Frankie.
Yes, that sort of thing, yeah. George Bernard Shaw's play Pygmalion shocked audiences in 1913 with one swear word, again quite well known, and just one word was the culprit. It's in the bit before Eliza is talking very nicely at the end, but it's after she's common. It's in a sort of transition period in the middle of the play, and in it, at the end of the scene, she says, "Goodbye all."
Are you walking across the park, Mr. Woodley?
Walk?
Because if you
Walk?
are, I'd like to...
Not bloody likely. I am going in a taxi. And that one word, people were paying money to go and see somebody actually up there, live on the stage, say that word. It was really deeply shocking, deeply offensive. How things have changed.
Harry Corbett and Sooty asked to add a female puppet. And the BBC committee sat to decide. It went to the top. The Director General agreed. Yes, he said, but no touching. In the 16th century, the actors would go along, for a Shakespearean play particularly, would go along to the slaughterhouse, and they'd get their doublets and they'd put into them, they'd open the doublets up and they'd stuff some pig gut and whatever into it, and then there would be sort of a more paunchy belly there, and it would stick out like that. And then at the end of the play, such as Hamlet, of course, but they all get killed, they would be fighting with real swords, and they go, and then you'd be able to go, and die very conclusively, and the audience loved it apparently.
And you actually saw Donald Wolfett.
I saw Donald Wolfett once in Hamlet, and every time he finished a play, he would get out to the front.
Yeah. I can put it up.
Oh no, it's all right. Oh, of course, this is.